The Chicago Bears grades in the NFL Players Association report cards show real improvement that you can directly attribute to head coach Ben Johnson.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis in a special bonus episode today. Not going to be a full-length Locked On Bears, but wanted to take a chance while we're still down here at the NFL Scouting Combine to react to the NFL Players Association report cards that I was going to say come out, but they kind of leaked. I mean, it's kind of a messy situation. Less important how they became public. More important what the grades actually were for the Chicago Bears, where they showed real, measurable improvement almost universally across the board. Everything the same or better from where it was a year before. And I think that's actually important. Like, how much of these grades really matter in the grand scheme of things? Yeah, are they affecting winning and losing that much? Maybe not, but I think it's a real measurement of progress that the team has shown and a real measurement of the impact Ben Johnson has on the team, its success, and its culture behind closed doors. I do want to thank you for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. And when you look at the Bears report card, pretty well across the board, you're seeing good grades. I mean, I think they overall ranked 13th, which I guess doesn't sound as impressive when you say it out loud, but out of 32 teams, that's, essentially the upper third or just about of the league, certainly the upper half. And like across the board, you're seeing, A's for nutrition and dietitian and weight room and strength coaches and some of the coaches as well. The general manager gets an A-. The team ownership gets an A-. Like, there's a couple C's in there for treatment of families, gets a C+. The home game field gets a C. And we'll spend some time talking about the defensive coordinator getting a C+ grade in there. But generally, A's and B's pretty well across the board. I guess you sprinkle in a few C's here and there. Like, it's a good spot to be in. But I think what jumps out at me is that a lot of those A's and B's are just like slight improvements from where they were last year in the report card. So I think it's worth noting these report cards, every player on the roster is allowed to submit their input and vote or grade, I guess, their team on this. The grading was done between the beginning of November and the beginning of December. So in the middle of the season, anybody who was under contract or on the roster for the team this season had the chance to submit their input for this. But when you look at some of those grades, I think treatment of families as the C+, that's the same as it was the year before. But you look at some of those other grades, like last year food and dining area was C+, and now it's up to a full B. Or like nutrition and dietitian was a B last year. Now it jumps all the way up to an A. Locker room up slightly to be a B+. Training staff last year was a B. That group is up to B+. And of course, maybe the big obvious one, last year the Bears generously, I think, gave the head coach a C grade for Matt Eberflus. Presumably, this voting may have been done slightly before he was fired, so maybe easier to give him, I don't know, is it easier to give him a grade before or after he's been fired? Maybe after he's gone, but it's easier to crap on him after he's gone. I assume while he's still there, they're a little bit more generous, if you will, in that grade, but obviously a significant jump up when you go from the C grade that Matt Eberflus got to now the A grade that Ben Johnson gets as head coach. And this year it's new to get a general manager grade of A-. We didn't have one of those last year for Ryan Poles. Ownership stays at an A- in back-to-back years. And then we'll get into some of the coaching grades in a minute here. But I just think when you start to see across the board greater valuing and appreciation of the things the team is offering, that's a reflection of improving team culture, of a dedication towards winning and success, and the players feeling like the organization is supporting them with better diet and nutrition, better locker room facilities, better training staff, better training room. And we've seen Ryan Poles be intentional about trying to upgrade some of those facilities and have more things available for players. And clearly, still some real work to be done when it comes to treatment of families in particular. That's long been one that feels like a money thing. The Bears have a fair or not fair reputation of maybe not always spending the most, and that's perhaps reflected there in the grades. But it just seems to me like this is now a place that the players want to be more. And sure, much of that I'm sure is a reflection of winning and having more success makes it easier to like everything that's going on around you, as opposed to when the team is losing. Maybe it's a little harder to say, oh yeah, but the locker room is great, or but the strength room is great, but we're losing, we're getting our butts kicked. There's certainly an aspect of that, but I think it goes a little bit beyond that, and you can point to the success Ben Johnson has had and the culture he has tried to rebuild in that locker room to say, yeah, guys are just generally more happy here, and it starts with that head coach at the top setting that new tone. The head coach got a great grade, A. You can't really do much better than an A in that. Offensive coordinator got a great grade in there, but defensive coordinator did not, and position coaches weren't quite as high either. So we're going to read into that without reading too much into that as we continue our bonus episode of Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? Well, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. So if you're looking at the standings and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. It just adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch when you've got money on who's going to win the championship or grab a conference title or go on that big run. And now not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. And in the spirit of being here at the Combine and the NFL Draft, we're doing a 5 Hour Energy flavor draft with 18 flavors to choose from, including a bunch of new and exciting options. There is something for everyone. And when I set my board and I have to make my number one pick for the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft, I go with the OG, the original berry flavor. It's big, it's bold with notes of raspberry and blackberry, but it's a smooth sweetness without being particularly overly sugary, and just like this light little tartness that keeps it balanced. It's familiar, it's easy to recognize, and you know it is a sure thing at the top of your draft board. But maybe you want to try something different, you want to expand out a little bit. There's a bunch of great new flavors like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, or cotton candy to make sure that there's just a little bit of something for everyone. So find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. I do want to thank you again for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today. Even a bonus listen, first listen is still always appreciated. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or the 500th time, we do this for you, and we wouldn't do it without you here. If you want to take that listening to the next level, you can always check out the Locked On Bears Everydayers Club to get access to an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Bears, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your shows. If you want to check it out, you can head to the website lockedonbears.supercast.com. But I did want to talk about some of the new grades in the report card this year that weren't there and available last year, more specific for coaches. You have coordinator grades as well as not individual position coach grades, but a broad totaling of all of the position coach grades together. So like OC has a grade, DC has a grade, and then all position coaches combined have a grade of their own. And for the Bears, offensive coordinator Declan Doyle gets an A-. The position coaches get a B-. The special teams coordinator also gets a B-, and the defensive coordinator gets a C+. And Dennis Allen's been around the NFL for a long time. He's not some new defensive coordinator trying to figure out on the fly. Like, he's done this quite a while before, and so it's like, a C+. Like, do the players really not like Dennis Allen? Like, is there a problem there? He didn't grade that much better than Matt Eberflus did last year. I mean, again, not an easy apples-to-apples comparison, but point being, C's get degrees, but in the NFL, you're looking for an A defensive coordinator. The Bears' defense was probably a C at best defense this past season, so maybe there's some fair reflection in there. But I also think this is a particularly stark contrast, both with it being a different scheme that these defensive players have had to adapt to under Dennis Allen, but also a very different style of coaching. We knew, Matt Eberflus. I'm trying to be gentle about it, right? But like, not a tough on the players type of coach, not a fiery type of coach. Certainly a lot of accountability questions and issues in there where maybe he wasn't stern enough with guys. And Dennis Allen comes in and is very much the opposite. A lot more fiery, a lot more stern, a lot more disciplined, a lot more, angry, just less friendly, like not in like a character way, but just in like Eberflus felt like maybe a little bit more of like a player's coach, quote unquote, whereas Dennis Allen is a little bit more no nonsense. And I can imagine if I were a Bears player that was brought in during the Eberflus era and was used to being coached a certain way and maybe used to being able to get away with stuff a little bit more, or used to being able to maybe cut corners here and there, or just take it a little bit more easy, and a more authoritarian style, in the nicest way possible, of Dennis Allen comes in, and all of a sudden he's asking you to work harder, and he's tougher on you, and pushing you to do more, and all this stuff that you weren't really used to, and all of a sudden, I liked it. It was a little easier the way before. You're not going to trade it because of the winning and all the other stuff that went wrong, but like I could see where defensive players who are used to things a certain way now maybe wouldn't grade Dennis Allen quite as well as you'd think because they don't like how different it has been. And now that's being reflected in how much the Bears are looking to turn over this defense and bring in new linebacker, new safety, new defensive lineman. We talked on the podcast all week about Brisker's likely not coming back. Jermaine Edmonds is going to get traded or released. Javon Dexter's on the trade block. He's probably gone. Like, there's going to be a lot of new faces on this defense to more fit what Dennis Allen wants from a scheme perspective. And so I would expect as they get more Dennis Allen guys on the roster that next year's defensive coordinator grade is going to go up just because it's going to be different players. And the defense, in theory, you would hope is also better, and that probably helps as well when the defense is having more success. But you would think, you watch this past season, they're getting turnovers for days. They're having fun out there. Jermaine Edmonds has 4 picks. Nashawn Wright has however many picks he ended up with, 4+ picks. Kevin Byard has 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever it ended up being. They're getting turnovers. Sure, they had some rough games in there here and there, but it wasn't like they were getting their teeth kicked in all season long. They had some fun, high-energy moments out there that I would think that it just looked at least like a little bit enjoyable for them. It wasn't like they were miserable every single week out there, but yet it's not exactly what they were used to. And I think part of Dennis Allen is probably thinking these guys aren't exactly what I want either, so we'll make it work. And maybe the players could sense that a little bit. So I just think this report card reflects how much transition I think is coming for this Bears defense for Dennis Allen. The position coaches at a B- was a slight surprise for me. I mean, maybe, again, different style of coaching. Somebody like Eric Bieniemy comes in and is pretty hard on these guys. Maybe the defensive coaching staff a little harder on these guys, but certainly a lot of the position coaches did a really good job getting more out of them. So even if the players didn't love it as much and maybe graded it a little bit lower than you'd expect, it was working at a lot of spots. So I can't be too upset about, if the grades are low, hey, the results are ultimately what's going to matter most there, especially when it comes to coaching staff grades. B- for special teams coordinator Richard Hightower. I don't know that I have strong feelings about it. I was a little surprised Ryan Poles got an A-. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I wasn't sure if the perception would be that high from the players, but I think he does a good job of fostering those relationships and really getting to know guys, and I think that's a big part of why he graded well. He's not being graded on his player acquisition ability, his scouting and his draft picks. He's being graded on, how much of the players like him, and I think he's done a good job of connecting and being involved there. So that's really, to me, what stood out about the report cards here from the NFL Players Association. Just wanted to take a quick handful of minutes here to check in on that, go through these grades, rather than waiting until Monday and it's going to feel like an old news by then while we're still here in Indy, while we're still getting to pick up all sorts of information behind the scenes. So wanted to check in with you here. We're still got a lot to talk about in fallout from all the conversations this week in Indianapolis. We're going to talk about what's going to be different for Caleb Williams in his second offseason of Ben Johnson's offense and what they're looking for from him. We're going to talk about what the Bears' plan is at left tackle, where we got some real insight from the offensive line coach Dan Rochar that I wasn't expecting to be him to be as forthcoming, as well as Ryan Poles, I think, hinting at the futures for Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift. So a lot to still break down next week on the Locked On Bears podcast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. If you want to join the Everydayers Club and take that listening to the next level, again, the website is lockedonbears.supercast.com, but you can keep tuning in wherever and however you already do. We're free and available on all platforms, and I always just try to make sure that whenever you tune in to the Locked On Bears podcast, you're always going to leave with another opportunity to bear down.